We did bring RC on here to talk some basketball, so we'll get into some more NFL stuff before we get him out of here because the playoffs are going, and that's a fun thing to talk about. While right now, one of the not fun things to talk about is the state of the Texas Tech men's basketball program. Since we last spoke to you guys, Texas Tech dropped two more Big 12 conference games. We fell to Baylor in Lubbock last Tuesday night, 81-74. Followed that up with a 68-58 loss to Kansas State on Saturday in Manhattan, dropping the Red Raiders to 0-7 in Big 12 conference play. Not what we thought we were going to see from the Red Raiders at this point of the season. So, RC, just right there, what are your thoughts right after these two losses this past week and kind of the state of the Texas Tech basketball program right now?
Yeah, man, they just got away from who they are.
Yeah.
I think it's the easiest way to say it is, they tried to get too cute. And I can admit it, I kind of fell for it in the sense of I was like, man, this team is talented. Going to the practices and stuff before the year. I was part of the problem when it came to the hype train. I can admit that. But also at the same time, it should have been apparent. And it kind of was to a degree, but I thought they would make adjustments that they just kind of got away from what made them great. And what made Texas Tech great was you could switch 1 through 5. You would make it hell in a cell type matchup on the defensive end. And then if you made a couple shots, you're probably going to win because your opponent isn't going to make more than you most of the time just because of how great you are defensively. So I think they just got too cute in terms of, trying to catch up with the Joneses almost in a way where everybody's just going after shooting in college basketball, when in all reality, they should have just said, screw it. This is working for us. Everybody's trying to mimic them across the country. Basically, go the Villanova route with Jay Wright, where, Pop Isaacs would have been perfect on this team, but you can only have one of those. You can't have multiple if you want to be great in the Texas Tech scheme because, and again, this is not a slight to Devion or Kerwin or anything like that. They bring some skills to the table, but the problem is they're small. You can't switch them except for 1 through 2, maybe 3 in Kerwin's case. And then if they get switched on to a big, you're done. And that's kind of where Texas Tech thrived in years past. And I think the last time that they had a defense that wasn't in the top 20 according to KenPom was 2016. It's been 7 years. So I think they just got away from what makes them great. And that's kind of the most frustrating part is I understand the changes in the aspect of you needed to get shooting, but why not go get guys that are bigger? Why not go get guys that, I'll take a 34% three-point shooter instead of a 38% three-point shooter if that 34% three-point shooter is 6'6", 6'7", and then the other guy's, 6'3". Texas Tech knows what makes them great, and they got away from it. And I think that's the most frustrating aspect of what's going on right now because there's no debating. There's talent on this roster, man. It is a very talented roster. It just can't play the Texas Tech brand of basketball that Mark Adams wants to play. And I think they probably should have known that. They took a big swing, and sometimes you strike out, and that's exactly what's happening right now.
Yeah, I think, last year I just remember when we were getting those roster pieces, right? You're getting Bryson Williams, you're getting Davion Warren, you're getting Adonis Arms. Me and Dust would always joke about he's 6'6", he's 6'7", he's 6'8". He's right in that wingspan. And then this year it came by and it's like 1 or 2 guys were in that wingspan and the rest were a little bit shorter. And we kind of made fun of that. All those guys were that, if you're 6'6" through 6'8", Mark Adams has got his eye on you, but all of a sudden that changes. Dustin, I just kind of want to get your thoughts right quick on where your head's at after a couple more losses.
Yeah, I agree with RC. Joey McGuire's trying to establish the brand, and we had it with Mark Adams and our former coach also with Mark Adams on the side there, and you got away from it. And just like RC's saying, you don't have the guys. Now you went too far in both ways. You got too small and you got too big and not enough in the middle there to make all of his, switch everything and rebounding work because there's too many mismatches. Can't keep up. Now, Fardaws is out there on a lottery pick against Baylor and just getting smoked every play. And then their big is down low against Pop to easily get a rebound on putback. Like, we're just getting ran around on. That's what, like, frustrates me the most is between the Baylor game and the Kansas game, the defense is just – there's just holes everywhere, and we're not even making it hard on the other team. Like, they're running plays they just made up, I feel like, and, guy's wide open in the middle of the lane. Extra pass, there's a three. Like, it's easy. I mean, what Baylor had, like 48 points or something like that in the first half. I mean, we never stopped them. It was all easy. And I mean, that's what's frustrating is not even that you don't even have the guys. Like, you don't have the same effort. You don't have even close to the same product on the floor. And then you're not even making adjustments, it seems like. So there's just lots of combinations of everything going south for you, I feel like.
Yeah, RC, I want to get to this kind of next question with like some of the frustrations. You kind of mentioned that one there, like we've lost our kind of brand from this team. One of the big frustrations that's kind of been rearing its head, especially in conference play, is the second half and these runs that we've been allowing teams to go on. Just kind of, what are your thoughts on like what's going on in the second half? You have anything that you can pick from that where, you got yourself a nice little 8-point lead against Kansas State there. You go on a nice run, and then all of a sudden it's a 20-5 run, and it just seems like every game we're coming away with a second half run by the opposing team that completely changes the outcome of the game.
Yeah, I mean, basketball is a game of runs, but Texas Tech in the second half sometimes takes it to the extreme in terms of allowing the opponent to go on those runs you were just talking about. I think, again, it really all comes down to this. Like, Texas Tech was built on the foundation of it switching everything. And, they've got some guys out there that I think are actually really good defenders. Daniel Bacho, I think he's a good defender. I think Devion Harmon's a good defender too. The problem is they're asking him to switch every time, and every time he gets switched, he's on a center. So obviously he's going to be bad. Like, it's just lost. Yeah. And to be fair, like, I get it because this is what teams are doing now because they know everybody's going to switch. They run doubles in terms of what they do is like if they're running a screen, they'll run two of them. And that way Devion gets lost, right? Because you got to go through two big guys. Okay, like I'm probably going to get lost too, right? Because you're going to have to stagger some stuff, and teams are doing a really good job of that. Perfect example was Iowa State, where they just got manhandled up in Ames. But I think when the second half comes down to it is it's just the consistency aspect of it. They're super inconsistent on both sides of the floor. They look like a top 25 program for 4 or 5 minutes, and you're like, damn, that's what we expected. Yeah. Then the next 4 or 5 minutes, you're like, holy crap, I don't know if they're going to win a conference game. But I do think when it's all said and done, it's funny, I made a video for the channel today about this. I was like, if a run is going to happen, it's going to happen right now. Like, and the reason I think it's going to happen is because you're about to see the time where you're 0-7 and you're Texas Tech. I think you're basically at the point now where I don't know if I can curse on here. Can I curse?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Just wanted to make sure. Where you throw shit up against the wall and you just see what sticks. Like, just see what sticks at this point. Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the point you're at if you're Texas Tech. So, and I think that's either going to do one of two things. It's either going to have the same exact result and you're not going to win basketball games, or it goes the other way and you win a game or two that you don't expect to win. And I think that's the big thing that is frustrating about the second half is just the inconsistency, as I mentioned, because I don't know, maybe I'm just naive, but I think there's talent on this roster. And I'm kind of done. I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of done with hearing about this young team thing. I think that's been a false narrative all year. If you go look at the age of this team, they're actually above the pack. Like, they're one of the, in terms of that quote unquote Mendoza line, you hear that term in baseball a lot, of age, right in the middle, they're actually above it. Right now, are they playing young guys?
Fardog's playing being back way.
Exactly. And to the people that thought Fardog's was going to change this whole thing, I'm sorry. Like, that was just unrealistic. But the talent is there. The thing for me that is the most, like, in terms of the offensive side, that's the most frustrating, and the lack of adjustments of it, is just they just stand there for long periods
Yeah.
of time. And don't get me started on this motion weave stuff they keep running. It's not 1980 Bob Knight. Like, we're not throwing chairs on the floor anymore. You got to learn how to do a real offense, or else you're going to have Pop jacking it from 35 trying to save you. And they've got guys where they can run stagger screens baseline. They've got big guys that are athletic enough to help them out on the perimeter to shoot the ball. I mean, I don't want Fardaws shooting the ball all the time, but make them
Right. But
respect it,
every now
right?
and then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I don't know. I think they're just not using guys in the roles that I think they would thrive at the most. And I think that comes back to coaching, where they're trying to, stick a circle block into a square hole, like it's, or the vice versa, whatever that saying is,
Yeah.
it's just not going to work, man. Like, it's just not going to work. And I think that the perfect example this year was Kerwin Walton. Like, you were asking him to do things that he just doesn't do. Like, and another perfect example is Kevin O'Banner. Like, Kevin O'Banner has not lived up to expectations this year because you're asking him to do things
That
he's not meant to
Yeah.
do. Like, he's just not. And I think that with what Texas Tech does moving forward in terms of just throwing shit up against the wall, I think it's, hey, let's just play 4 out, 1 in, and let's just see what happens, man. Everybody just run chaotically. Don't stop a back cut. Have a big man and Fardaws and Bacho on the floor. Let KO get to his corner where he's an historically great shooter. And then everybody else just runs around like a chicken with their head cut off and finds some space. Like, who says no? I think the players will love it. And it can't be any worse. It can't be any worse than what we're seeing offensively right now. And if it is, well, all right, we can go back to the 1980s, I guess.
Yeah, the offense has to be one of the most frustrating things because of kind of what we were sold in the offseason, right? You got the addition of Steve Green. Dustin, super familiar with Steve Green there at SBC. Had a lot of time watching his practices and games. I don't think you're seeing anything of what you expected to have this offense that Steve Green was supposed to bring. So offensively, like, Kevin O'Banner struggled. Doesn't really feel like there's a leader on this team. Like, what's your thoughts on who's the leader on this team? If there isn't, who, like, did we expect too much from Kevin O'Banner? Because I think a lot of people kind of pegged him as, hey, he was a starter on this team last year. Mark, knows what Mark Adams wants from you. A lot of minutes, he's almost to 2,000 career points. Like, then did we over expect from Kevin O'Banner this season and crowning him as the possible leader for this team?
I don't think we over expected, but again, it kind of goes back to, I don't know if it's fair to judge Kevin O'Banner right now.
Yeah.
In the sense of, like, he's in a lose-lose situation, right? Like,
Yeah.
he's in an offense that doesn't move. He's not the thing that Kevin O'Banner is really, really good at, Texas Tech doesn't do. And that's a major issue, right? Like, for example, the thing that made Kevin O'Banner really good at ORU was his pick and roll. And with Max Abrams up there, who's, by the way, I don't know if y'all paid
Still
attention to
there.
Oral Roberts, but they've got him and this 7'5" guy that's like KD. It's wild. Anyway, yeah, shout out to Ball Is Life on that one. That's the only reason I saw it. But yeah, like, Kevin O'Banner, first and foremost, is not a very good screener. He's a tweener that is asked to play the 4 position, and he's not a 4. He's more like a 3 that has 4 tendencies on defense because he's a really good rebounder. And so I think Texas Tech just asked him to do too much from the standpoint of not the leadership role. Like, I'm there. Like, I've seen it before. I went to multiple practices. Like, Kevin O'Banner's a solid leader. Devion Harmon's a solid leader. Now, that doesn't mean they can't get frustrated and everything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, 0-7 would take its toll on me too. But I do think when it comes down to it, I think the thing that is just, again, the most frustrating for these guys is the aspect of, it almost feels like they're being asked to do too much in a scheme and in a role that doesn't fit their skill set.
Yeah.
And again, the guy that I always come back to with it is Devion Harmon. I think Devion Harmon is a solid basketball player. I will admit I probably shit on him too much. But you're asking him to do things that he's not good at, and of course he's going to play bad. Like, he's getting switched onto a
Yeah.
5 every possession. Now, could he be better in the half court offensively? Yes, but we know he's not a guy that's good at half court offense. Like, you're asking
He
him
likes to get
run
the
it
ball
when
and
he
go.
shouldn't. Exactly.
Yeah.
He's a guy that gets it and go. And I think that goes back to your initial point, where you could argue that, you don't see anything from Steve Green unless it's in transition. And why is that? I think there's a lot of reasons you can go to. But I mean, the main one is I think when it comes down to it is they're trying to fit blocks into a circle hole. And that is their biggest fault. Like, I think everything anybody complains about on Texas Tech Twitter, Facebook, a podcast, whatever it may be, all comes back to the point that we talked about at first, was Texas Tech got away from their identity. They got too cute, and it's biting them in the ass right now.
Yeah.
And it's hard to make adjustments because everything that you're trying to adjust to is back to your identity, but you don't have the roster to change back to your identity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Dustin, we pointed out some frustrations. Is there any other frustrations you have that you kind of want to put on the table here?
Just going back to the Kansas State game, I wanted to point out, second half, there was about just over a minute left, and we were at 19 points in the half. And that was just before we got they let us get layups, at the end. So, 19 points in, basically 19 minutes of the second half. Yeah, Davion Harmon, like we just mentioned, really in the half-court offense bugs the hell out of me. I literally counted multiple times in the Baylor game. He would hold the ball for 4 to 5 seconds, then dribble for 4 to 5 more seconds, going nowhere, just at the top of the key basically, or using a screen and then backing out and not using it. And then next thing you know, there's 12 seconds left on the clock. They're scrambling for a shot. He's throwing it to Pop or Jay Tyson, and they got to jack up a terrible 3. And it bugs the hell out of me when we do that. We do nothing for most of the shot clock and then jack up a terrible shot. And then yet we're letting teams just have the easiest offense on the other end. And it's like, what do we not see here? Like, just player and coaching wise, like, communicate with each other. Like, it's just such a disparity of what we're doing. And like, Kansas game was the worst. Like, they're running such easy plays. Oh, there's an easy layup. Oh, easy 10-foot jump shot, wide open in the middle. Next thing you know, like, Tyson's having to jack up a fadeaway 25-footer to try to get anything off. Yeah. And that's what frustrates me is I feel like our players are just blindly going at what the coaches tell them, and they're not trying to fix it either. And the coaches just aren't fixing it when they see it's not working.
Yeah,
so
it's bizarre to me.
You think it's mostly the coaching?
I think it's both, but I do think it starts at the coaching. And like, from what I've noticed, like, I'm the biggest Steve Green fan coming from SPC. I don't think the offense is in his hands. I think it's, from what I've seen on the sidelines where we sit kind of behind the bench, I see a lot of Sean Sutton being the offensive coordinator person in crunch time. The couple times I've seen Steve get up and yell out some plays, magically get a bucket pretty easy. I'm like, what are we not putting together here?
Yeah, from what I know, it's not all Steve Green.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's kind of like what you're saying. Like, Steve Green is the offensive coordinator, like, if you want to put it in football terms. But it's more of a,
like,
I guess, melting pot, like a melting pot of ideas, almost in a way. But here's the thing, too. Like,
well, they're not melting.
I don't know. I feel like I'm a broken record just saying it. It's like,
right,
what Steve Green wants to run, you still can't run it with this team. Like, it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I almost felt like they overcorrected in terms of what was right for them. And it's like, it's a pendulum effect. Like, they were really good over here, defensively. They're at the highest of the high. And then they were like, there's a bunch of shooters over here. Maybe we can get to, like, right here and get some of those shooters to move over with us. Instead, they moved all the way over here.
All the way to the other side.
And you're like, I got a 6'2" guy on a center right now. This is not ideal, and you can hide those flaws. Perfect example was Texas Tech with Davide Moretti, right? Davide Moretti was an awful defender. his first couple of years at Texas Tech. He got better, obviously, but you can only have one of those guys on the floor. You can't have multiple, and you better surround him with guys that are 6'5" to 6'8", and you better have a guy like Daniel Bacho. And I'm not trying to compare Daniel Bacho to this guy, but somebody similar to Tyreek Owens, one of those big athletic bigs, right? Like you have to have one. And if you have more than one, a pop on the floor and not those guys around him, the defense is shot. You have no chance. And the thing is Dustin, you were talking about bad offense. I was talking to one of the coaches. What was it? I guess after the Baylor game last week. They hadn't played K-State yet. And I was like, do you think that your defensive lapses weighing on you on the offensive side? He said, no, I think it's the opposite. And I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. From the standpoint of, again, foundation of the program is defense, right?
Right.
Even so, like your point, getting away from what we do. Like,
exactly.
And I was like, all right, we'll get a stop or two, and then keep fighting on the offensive end.
Yeah, like listen, I'm a guy that likes to score 200 points in 2K just like everybody else. Damn it, okay. But like at the same time, like that's not reality. The model that Texas Tech went after was Jay Wright at Villanova. But they just said, screw the offensive side of it. We'll figure it out. We're going to switch everything, and we'll have a guy that's like, Archie Diacono. We'll have another guy like Jalen Brunson. But we can't play both of them really at the same time. And if we can, it's because we got all these athletes around them to kind of hide their flaws. Again, Texas Tech just swung too far in the opposite direction. The talent's there. I just if they don't drastically change their identity in terms of the current scheme that they're running, they can't run them no middle. They just can't. They can't run it. You got to stop switching. And if you continue to switch, you're going to get the same results. So I think you just need to run man the whole time. Don't switch.
Yeah.
Hedge on screens and everything like that. Figure it out because you got some length out there from the big man perspective with Bacho, Fardaws, and Kevin, and even KJ Allen to an extent. But if you start switching everything, you're toast. And I think at that point,
on this for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, run zone at this point. Run zone.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Yeah. I think that's where I get really frustrated with the coaching staff, and that's kind of the next part of this is it just doesn't seem like they're willing to get away from that. It's like, all right, we get it. That's the brand, that's the defense that you bring in, but it's obviously not working. Like teams are figuring out how to attack it and beat it, and we're still out there in the second half after a big run, running the same exact defense, getting the same exact mismatches, and the teams are exploiting those mismatches. Like the Baylor game was a perfect example, just constantly, like we couldn't figure out how to stop their offense with those guards that they have. And then their athletic bigs are able to just out rebound you. Where's your head at on this coaching staff right now as a collective unit? And then we'll get on to the head man kind of after that.
Yeah, I think, I know some of these guys, so it's kind of hard to talk to them like that. But I think from a professional standpoint, they're hard-headed. I think they're just like any male or female in this position,
right?
Where it's like, hey, I'm going to stick with what got me here. But I also think at the same time, they're starting to see, and you're starting to see some adjustments, like specifically on the offensive end, where people were begging and pleading for more transition offense. And when Texas Tech can actually get a defensive rebound, they push the ball. So, got to give them credit there. Now, on the defensive end, I mean, like press, run a zone, just run man-to-man, like do something. Like I get it, the no-middle defense has literally revolutionized college basketball. Like that's not an understatement. It like legitimately changed college basketball forever. And it changed the Big 12 forever because, I mean, two of the last three teams that were in the national championship game, Texas Tech and Baylor, ran it. And you could have argued that Texas Tech, again, probably should have won the national championship if it wasn't for a simple, ball tap that wasn't called on Davide, and not the basketball.
Or tripping over your own feet, Kyle Guy.
Yeah, hey, but we don't need to talk about that. Like, it just changed everything.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it's hard to get away from that in the sense of what has worked for you for so long. but it comes back to my initial point about kind of where you're at in the season, where just throw shit up against the wall, man. See what works. Like change
Yeah.
something up. Like, and I think that that's where the coaching staff as a whole just kind of has to say, all right, ego aside, what the hell is going to win us a basketball game here? Like that's really what it comes down to. And I don't think that they're against that. I'm not saying
Right.
that.
Yeah.
But we have to see it in order to give them that praise, if that makes sense.
So one of the things I've kind of been thinking on with this no middle defense, and like you said, it's kind of taken over college basketball. You look at the Big 12, you look at the top tier teams in the Big 12, all seem to be running this defense. If you pay attention to the NFL like we do, you saw Mahomes and Tyreek Hill over the years just burning teams over the top. And so defenses decided, hey, we're not going to let teams beat us over top. We're going to make them nickel and dime us down the field. And offenses have had to adjust to that. Do you think that people have figured out the no middle defense? Is that some of this, is that it's kind of been figured out? Because to me, watching it really doesn't seem like all that complicated to beat, right? You just got to be able to have some knockdown shooters because you're going to get open shots. If when you switch onto things, you trap on the sideline. We always know in basketball, if you trap, that means there's a guy that's open. So it's not simple to knock down every shot, but the open shots are going to be there. You're also going to find those mismatches with the bigs on littles on bigs, which creates open offensive rebound opportunities, which creates open 3-point shots. So do you think any of that has to do with it? Just the fact that college basketball has now maybe evolved to where the no middle defense isn't as daunting as it used to be?
100%. Yeah, 100%. The Big 12 is literally the testament for it.
Right.
Like you look at it, I know Baylor beat Kansas on Monday night, but I mean, everyone's figured it out. The perfect example in terms of the team that's basically realized, like, all right, if you're going to go no middle, we're going to zag, and it's worked out perfectly for them, is Iowa State. They have done everything right to beat the no middle defense because you talked about it. You got to get shooters. And Iowa State's got some guys with some straps, man. My God, they can shoot lights out, right? And they're well coached. They play defense. And here's the thing about like Iowa State, and I think they're the blueprint moving forward for it, and even Kansas State to a degree as well. You look at what Kansas State does. They got one little guard in Noel, and then they got a bunch of dudes that can switch, right? Like that's what you need to have. And I think that that's the counterpart, or the part where you're looking at, it's like, okay, if they're going to do this to me, I'm going to do this. And I think teams are slowly getting there. I think the no middle defense, if it's run right, it's still exceptional.
Right.
But there's so many factors that you have to have on your roster and the construction of it and the guys in order for it to work, that it has to be down to a T. And the problem is if you're one off in terms of, one thing roster wise, like if you don't have one extra guy off the bench, again, Brandon Francis, for example, Brandon Francis was perfect for Texas Tech, right? Like when they went to the Final Four, because he was that extra guy where, was he a guard? Yeah. But he's 6'5", whatever, 2, whatever. So he could go down in the post,
right? And
you wouldn't feel awful about it. It's not ideal, but he's got enough body on him where it's okay. We got the switch. It's fine. It's whatever. We can figure that out. And then you got Tyreek coming over to save the day, right? Obviously, that was a perfect storm and everything. And I think Texas Tech, when they look at the no middle defense, that's the perfect way to go. And other teams are starting to realize, okay, well, we don't have to run the no middle necessarily, but we can get guys that can easily, beat it. And Baylor, again, example too, Keontae George is a stud. I mean, he's a lottery pick, probably a top 5 pick in the NBA draft, top 8, if I'm being conservative. He's going to beat you regardless, right? But the way Scott Drew has done it, you can tell when Scott Drew, that light bulb clicked for him in terms of running the no middle and almost mimicking Texas Tech, because Baylor's gone on this historic type run. Where they won a national championship because of it. Simply put, they run the no middle. They got a bunch of dudes, and I think college basketball is catching up to it. But to say that, hey, the no middle is, going to be extinct, or it's, a dying defense, or it's not going to work, I think that's too far. But it's so like the margin for error, almost like the Big 12 conference, the margin for error in terms of running the no middle is so paper thin now because
Right.
teams did adjust. And that's the thing, back when Texas Tech was in the Elite Eight in the Final Four, the margin for error was, maybe like 5 or 6 pages deep. Now it's like maybe half of a page thin.
Right.
So
It's wild how
RC,
college basketball gets back and just adjusts so fast too.
It is. That's where I'm kind of coming from. Is like it felt fast.
let's stay on the bench of things and talk about the head guy, Mark Adams. A lot of, you mentioned it earlier, Tech fans and Twitter sphere and podcasts are starting to heat up his seat quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those, but what are your thoughts and opinions on him, the job he's doing, and what kind of going forward might look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you're in the middle of a down year. I still think he's the guy. I think it's one of those deals where I had somebody on one of my videos try and compare it to like Matt Wells. I was like, what are we talking about? Like, Matt Wells didn't go to the Sweet 16, my guy. What are we talking about?
Yeah. Matt Wells never got the train running.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like you could argue that Tech had a really good chance to beat Duke last year. It just kind of fell apart in the final couple minutes. But no, I think Mark Adams, again, he's a good coach. He knows what he's doing, everything like that. I do think that the players actually do want to play for him. You see that kind of in the press conferences and stuff like that. Now, that's not to say the players aren't frustrated by things. Everybody's human.
Right.
But I think to talk about, hey, should we fire Mark Adams right now? I think that's a little bit premature. But I'll say this. I think at the end of the year, I mean, let's just say hypothetical, and this is all hypothetical right now, right? Say they go 3-15. I think you probably have to start that conversation just because of the amount of funds that are in this program. I think Texas Tech is at a standard now, like it or not.
Yeah.
They're not Kentucky, right? Like they're not that. They're just not. But they're at a standard now where there's
new blood, right?
Yeah, there's no room for error in terms of like a down year is not acceptable. A down year for Texas Tech is making the tournament and getting bounced in the first round. Like that's a down year. So maybe there's a conversation then. Listen, I'm frustrated by some of his decisions as well. I get it from the lack of emotion standpoint from the fan perspective, but Mark Adams is still a really good coach, like when it comes down to it. But again, sound like a broken record.
Well,
you were doomed from the start.
I'm against those people that are, all on a test and like want to fire him like way overreaction. Like, one, this is the hardest league out there.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen some people compare, there's 6 teams in the top 17 right now. You've had a lead on all of them at one point in those games, and some of them double digits. And I like to compare it. Look at TCU and Iowa State like 2 and 3 years ago. They were winning less than 5 games. They didn't have much of a roster. They were having these conversations. They knew they had a good guy at the helm and could take it, and now they're both top 10 teams. Like, I think stability is way better, especially with a guy you trust like him. And you could also look back to Tech basketball 10 years ago and how did that go with a handful of coaches, and how far did you fall then?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I'm on the same side as you guys here. Like, I obviously we're so quick to disregard what he did last year. People are, what have you done for me lately? People are so reactionary nowadays. But like RC, I definitely think there's a few things that are illuminating this season that it's like, okay, well, if you're going to continue to recruit this way and try to build teams this way, then maybe that's a conversation that needs to be had, because this clearly isn't the blueprint moving forward. We took a swing, a big miss, and you kind of got to get back to the roots of what had that success last year. But there was success last year, and there are some things that can be worked on. RC, what point were you about to make? Sorry, interrupted.
2020-21 season, Iowa State 0 wins in conference. Kansas State with 4, TCU with 5. They were the bottom 3 2 years ago.
Yeah, TJO at Iowa State. Like, I was talking with my buddy the other day. outside of Bill Self, I don't know if I'd take another coach in the Big 12. I think he's that good. I think he's really that good. And you might have Jerome Tang at number 3 because what he did at Kansas State, my goodness. Now, the point I was going to make is this. I think another reason the quote-unquote hot seat gets hotter quicker now is because of NIL. You saw how much money was invested into this program from a recruiting standpoint, but also a facility standpoint. And you've got the backing of a lot of donors now. And by no means am I saying the donors want him out or anything. But let's face it, the people that are probably going to make this decision is obviously Kirby Hocutt, but the donors too. And if the donors want to make a change, like it or not, that's what's going to happen. And by no means am I saying that's what's going on. I'm just saying that if that's a real possibility now, because they're seeing their dollars and not a return on their investment when it comes to winning games. Now, could Texas Tech hypothetically go on and win 11 games in conference? I mean, it's a non-zero chance, but it's a lot closer to 0 than it is 1%. Right. So it's one of those deals where it's like, I think that's another reason why this hot seat for Mark Adams is being talked about a little bit more than it should be, in my opinion, at least at this stage and everything, because NIL. I think NIL changes the game for everybody. I think it changes the tone on everything. I mean, you saw it with Fardaws earlier this year where he looked like he was going in the portal. Like, it was an NIL thing. Like, that's what it was. Like, let's not get it twisted. And I think that, it sounds bad when you say it like this, but they're almost investors, right? They want to see a return on their investment in terms of them giving these guys money. And obviously it's a sport. Anything can happen. This, that, and the other. Nothing's guaranteed once you're in between the white lines and everything, right? But 0-7, all right, now we're starting to get those wheels turning a little bit. What's the problem here? What's the real issue? And again, I think, Kirby Hocutt, those donors, if they're going to have a conversation about it. It's just the reality of the situation because of the world we live in. Yeah, I think people are too reactionary sometimes, but I also think Texas Tech has a standard now, specifically in basketball, where I think if you asked, really high regarded basketball minds around the country that cover this game, the Matt Norlanders at CBS, so on and so forth, Texas Tech coming into this year was valued and viewed as a top 16 program in the country. There is no room for you to go 0-7. There is no reason for you to be 10-9. It's that simple. There's just no reason for it. You were legitimately a Kyler Edwards layup away from going to 4 consecutive Sweet 16s, minimum. And now you're 0-7 in conference. Like, I get the point, people talking about it, but I also have to, catch myself in saying, like, bro, I get it from the fan side of it somewhat, but also, like, hey, like, we're 7 games in. Things can happen. Like, I think it was Hacks tweeted it out. Oklahoma State went 0-6 to start out Big 12 play a few years ago and made the tournament. By no means am I saying Texas Tech is going to do that. But if they make an adjustment here or there, they were just a couple bounces away from, being 3-4 in the conference. And that's not exactly where you want to be, but way better than 0-7. And we're still looking at a potential tournament team.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's where we've become as a program now, and you don't want to fall back into what we were in the early 2010s, right, where we were irrelevant. And to have this program be built up as much as it has over the last handful of years, you don't want to go back. And so it is very important to maintain that success. And I think that's where it comes from. And I think next year is going to be the most important year of Mark Adams' career. If he's able to right the ship, get things back to where they were, everything will be fine from there. But, everything falls off and everybody is looking for someone to blame. And, obviously it always goes to the head man who gets blamed for it. And so that's kind of where that goes. But a couple more questions we got here on the basketball team, and then we'll get on to our shot bets. But the young guys, the youth that this team has, we took a big shot this year. We went a lot younger than we were last year. We had a lot of experience, a lot of older guys on the team. We took a lot of young guys onto the team. with NIL, like you said, transfer portal. How do you think we go about handling the young guys moving forward? Now, obviously, we still have a shot, how far ever it is, making the tournament. But if you see the wins not coming, what do you kind of think we should do with these young guys? Because now I think you have to kind of cater to them, especially if they're guys you want to be a part of this program moving forward.
Yeah, that last sentence is the big thing for me.
Yeah.
And make no mistake about it, I'm not saying this is what's going on at Texas Tech right now, but it goes on around the country where, there might be a guy on the roster right now where Texas Tech is like, hey, you're not coming back next year. Like, we're going to help you in each and every way possible to get to your next destination, but this fit just didn't work out. So that's very possible right now. But I also think, the lineup that I want to see more of, just to see if it fails, again, it goes back to that whole throwing stuff up against the wall and see what sticks, is you need to play Lamar Washington more. You have to,
I agree.
in my opinion. I think he's your best guard defender. I don't really even think it's close, to be honest.
I agree.
the Elijah Fisher stuff, like, it is what it is at this point. I think people saw the 5 stars and thought instant impact. It's not what he was. He was going to be a project from the jump. And I think he kind of knew that as well. Now, to be fair, it has been a little bit disappointing, even with those realistic expectations. But I think you handle minutes this way. Whoever plays the hardest, whoever has the best practices, whoever you think gives you the best chance to win, put him out there. I think it's that simple. I don't think you change anything up in terms of like your philosophy when it comes to, I have to play this guy a certain amount of minutes just because he's a senior, right? Like, I don't think you have to do that. Like, if a freshman is out playing the bro, play the freshman.
Play the freshman. Yep.
It's that simple to me. I think, classification's got to go out the window a little bit. And I think that goes for everybody, legitimately everybody on the team. Like, for example, this all hypothetical, but say Pop just goes through a stretch where he's awful for 4 games. All right, play somebody else. Like, it's that simple right now for me. I don't think that's going to happen because I think Pop he's a star, but he was the first name that came to mind. So, but yeah, I think that's kind of where it's at right now with me and the young guys is, again, if you just throw some stuff up against the wall, see what kind of rotations you like. Because, with NIL and the transfer portal, you're recruiting these guys to stay here next year every single day. This isn't a 1-year contract like people think, like with NIL. This is literally not even a week by week thing. This is a day by day, damn near hour by hour recruiting process of these guys. So, however they want to go about it that way. But I think it comes down to, how are they playing in practice? What kind of effort are they giving on the floor? And what kind of, mindset do they have? Are they just frustrated all the time, this, that, and the other? Like, hey, you got to be positive in all 3 of those or else you're not seeing the floor. And I think it's that simple.
Yeah, we're big Elijah Fisher guys on this podcast. And, not just like the 5 stars, just because like you're not going to get him better sitting his ass on the bench and getting 0 minutes. Like, I think he needs something. And like, sure, he doesn't look the best out there. I'm not saying get him more than 10 minutes. But get him some minutes. Some minutes help. I mean, we just saw it with Kerwin last week. Kerwin wasn't doing anything until last week. And then our defense was so bad, we were like, well, it can't get worse. Let's put somebody in who can make some shots. Well, maybe this is one of those throw it against the wall things and see if Elijah can go get you some buckets. He's one of those 6'6", 6'7" guys that you love. Like, use that length. Like, I just want to see him get some minutes rather than 0 every game.
No, that has been interesting. That's caught my eye, though. I was like, I'm surprised he's not just getting like – but also at the same time, I'll say this. People were shitting on Mark because he would throw Kerwin in these bad moments, right, for like 2 minutes. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Like, you can't do that. Like, I want to see Elijah play too, but also I think you would just be throwing Elijah in that kind of situation where it's not fair to him, first and foremost, and not fair to the team, because there's no way you can expect a 19-year-old kid to come in off the bench and just play 2 minutes and make a huge impact, you know?
Right.
No, I'm not wanting a huge impact either. I want him on the floor with also good veterans. Put him on there with Pop, Jalen, O'Banner, like other good pieces. Don't put him in there with 3 other bench guys like we do sometimes. I'm like, who the hell's going to score for us? Like, yeah, get him in the best situation to play some too, though.
Yes, I mean you can't learn unless you're on the court. Sometimes I think that's been frustrating, but at the same time, understand that he's young and he's got a lot of work to do to get to that point.
High school senior right now.
Right. That's crazy. That's definitely crazy. But coming up on this week for the Red Raiders, they got a Wednesday nighter here in Lubbock versus West Virginia. And Saturday, they travel to Baton Rouge to face LSU in the SEC Big 12 showdown. RC, your quick thoughts and what you kind of want to see this week from the Red Raiders to maybe give us some hope down the stretch for this season.
Yeah, I think they match up really well against West Virginia. Dawes sounds like he's a questionable for tomorrow, from what I was told. So he may play, may not play. I don't know. I just know he's questionable. I'd probably lean towards the side he plays. But I think that they match up with West Virginia really well. You're going to recognize some names there. Trey Mitchell, the UT transfer, he's there now.
Yeah.
I just think they match up well because of what West Virginia wants to do, which is play bigs. Texas Tech has got some bigs, so that'll help. I think if you're going to see Texas Tech have any kind of chance to turn their season around, it's this week.
To win. Yeah.
Like this is the week where you have to go from a psychological standpoint. At least you got to beat West Virginia.
Yeah.
Get in the win column in the Big 12, right? Because let's face it, right now, West Virginia and Texas Tech are the 2 worst teams in the Big 12. It is what it is.
You got to win, though.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's true.
Damn it.
You could argue Texas Tech should have 3. It's an argument.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything, obviously, because they're 0-7. So I think this week, from a psychological standpoint, like if it doesn't happen this week, it's that, fire meme where the guy, I don't even know, is it a dog drinking coffee?
Right. This is
fine. And there's
fine.
just like, it's fine. It's fine. Well, the whole world burns around you kind of situation. And I hate going there, but it's just one of those things where it's like, if it doesn't happen now, like, hey, bro, like,
not going to happen. Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to happen. Like, because your schedule is sick after that. Like, I think you play
your easiest back-to-back set of games.
Yeah, and one of them isn't in the Big 12. You're better than LSU.
Yeah.
Don't get that twisted. You are better than LSU, even though you have no wins in the Big 12. You're better than them. So you should win that game, regardless if it's in Baton Rouge, Thailand, whatever. Doesn't matter. You should win the game. So, yeah, I think you should go 2-0 this week. Obviously, it starts with West Virginia, who I think you match up well against. I think the USA is going to be rocking after y'all were cooped up all day inside. Out there in the 806 with the snow. So I think that's going to be a win. And I talked about that today over in the video that I did where I was like, listen, like Texas Tech fits really well against them. Like everything Texas Tech does, they have the advantage against West Virginia. So if it doesn't happen against them at home, all right, let's hit the button. Like I'm kind of at that point. Hit the button.
Catch y'all at the next tailgate.